And welcome to The World According to Jackie Simmons. I am delighted that you're able to join us today. Today, we are interviewing one of my favorite people. She is the queen of follow-ups, and she has a formula that we're going to be walking through today. So help me welcome to the studio, Debbie. Debbie, go ahead and unmute. I am super happy that you are here.
So great to be here, Jackie. Thanks so much for having me.
So, Debbie, when I first met you, it was at a big event, and you had the most remarkable sense of calm, even though you were in an environment of hundreds of people, and people were like getting into overwhelm because they had so many people to follow up with, and you didn't seem fazed at all. So I'll tell you what, let's take and you deep dive us into the world according to Debbie. How did that come about?
In terms of this business, how I got started?
Yeah, and how did you end up being able to manage follow-up flow?
Well, so basically, I worked on Wall Street for 20 years, and I was very successful there. And I didn't know it, but I had developed a follow-up system. And so when I retired early because I wanted to be a mom and be home with my family. And I started a network marketing business, a health and wellness business. It actually had started earlier. And I went to a conference, and this woman was interested. I had a vendor booth. She was interested in the products that I had to offer and asked me to follow up with her, which I did for 14 months, which is not easy to do. And finally, she became a client and said to me, Debbie, you're amazing at follow-up. You need to teach me your system. I struggle with this. And we got on the phone, and one thing led to the next. And she just said, I'm struggling with this. Nobody follows up with me the way you do. You have a gift. You've got to do something with this. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I didn't know I was doing anything special. I didn't know anybody was struggling with this. And sometimes I believe, Jackie, that we all have a gift. And Darlene and anyone else listening, please put in what your gift is. We all have a gift, and sometimes it takes somebody outside of us to make us aware of it. So that's how this business got started. Seriously, I did not wake up one day and say, I'm amazing at follow-up and I need to teach people this, right? It was her encouragement. And I'm so grateful to her because I've been able to help hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people to improve their follow-up and sales skills, because follow-up is sales, sales is follow-up, it's all the same. And so that's my journey. That's how I got here today. And I feel so blessed that this is just my gift. This is my genius. I can do this in my sleep. And that's why I'm so calm, because I just know what to do and what to say. So the confidence is there and the energy surrounds that, the energy that shows up is calm energy.
I think you hit upon something really key when you said sales is follow-up and follow-up is sales. And I think that many, many, many entrepreneurs struggle with what I call, and no offense to anybody with a diagnosis, but I call it post-traumatic sales disorder. They have been on the receiving end of so many bad sales conversations, so many high-pressured environments, that the fear of having a conversation, because if I have to become that in order to get good at sales, I'm not interested. I think that plays into it. And so what can you say to somebody who is really just kind of blocked and may not know that that's why they're blocked, but they're not picking up the phone?
Right. So there are a lot of people who have fears and limiting beliefs that come up that stop them from picking up that phone, and that phone can feel like it, weighs a ton. And most of the issues, well, there's a couple things I hear. One is fear of rejection. People do not like to get a no. And what I say to people is, they're not rejecting you. They're rejecting what you're offering, or they're rejecting the timing, or they're rejecting the investment, right? It's usually not us unless we're coming across very aggressive. And so my whole underlying philosophy is following up from the heart, from more of that feminine place, showing up more in service so that you don't come across salesy or pushy. So that's the second thing. The salesy, pushy thing is a big issue for people. They equate follow-up and sales with being pushy because of what you just said, the post-traumatic sales disorder, whatever you called it, right? Because they've been the recipient of that, and they do not like the way that feels. And they think that's how they have to be in order to be successful. And so I work with my clients around having a mindset shift around follow-up, that there is a way that you can follow up that's building connection where you're showing up in service versus being salesy and repelling. So when you
Mm-hmm.
show up in service to people, let go of your agenda, you won't be perceived as being salesy or pushy like ever again.
Got it. All right. So that's an interesting place to go. When you follow up with your agenda, presupposes that there's an agenda. So where did I'm going, do I have an agenda with my follow-up? No.
Okay.
So
All right,
what's an agenda look like?
okay. So agenda is being attached to the results. So great. I'm so glad you brought this up. So to clarify it. So I'm all about setting intention, putting out there into the universe what you want to have happen. Law of attraction, like you put it out, you'll bring it back. But letting go of the attachment to the results, it's very different, because it's the agenda, it's that attachment to the results that creates that salesy, pushy, aggressive energy that nobody wants to be. They don't want to show up that way, and they don't want to be on the receiving end of it. So that's what I mean about not being attached to the outcome and not trying to sell, showing up in service and seeing how you can help people and uncover their needs and getting curious.
So what gets in the way of people being able to show up that way?
These limiting beliefs and fears, like we just talked about, that, and not having a system, like not having a process. So
Okay.
when people don't, first of all, when they have those limiting beliefs, it stops them.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes, I work with my clients with the practical parts and also daily practices to help them let go of some of those limiting beliefs. So if they've got things that are stopping them their whole life, I refer them to someone who does that deep inner work, right?
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that really helps people is when people, and my clients tell me this all the time, when they know what to do and what to say at every step of the process, they're more confident, and they'll pick up the phone or they'll type the email or they'll send the text because they know what to say. They're prepared in advance to do that. The reason they weren't doing it before is because they just didn't know what to say. They didn't know how to language the conversation, so they just didn't follow up at all. They just said, I'm not doing this.
I'm not doing this. I've heard that before. So, so the follow up in sales equal pushy. Okay, we've got that. The way out of that is simply to come from your heart. And then the other piece, which is make sure you know what you're doing. What is the next piece? Yeah, I mean, I love the fact that you brought that up because I run into it so many times where people think that their first conversation is supposed to end up in a transaction. Yeah. What's your experience with that? How many, well, you said the one
Yeah.
was 14 months. I mean, were you following up every month, every week? I mean,
Yeah, I was following up at the beginning, a few times during that month, and then it was monthly after that. But I'll share some statistics that I think will be really enlightening. And also, if anyone has any questions, please post them in the chat. I will answer them either as we go, if it's appropriate, or at the end. But love to know your takeaways. So please, type that in the chat and any questions you have. So here's some mind-blowing statistics. So 48% of people that you meet at a networking event, a workshop, whatever, will not follow up with you. Like 48% of people never follow up, which is like staggering. And then it takes minimum of 5 contacts, minimum, for the average person to say yes to doing business with you. And some experts say it can be 8 to 15. But
yeah,
here's the thing, huh?
yeah, I was going to say that's a floating number, but
Right.
it's
But
more.
minimum.
Yeah. Why do people network if they don't follow up?
That's a whole other conversation. So I'll finish these statistics and then I'll respond to that.
Okay.
So the thing is about this 5th contact is only 8% of entrepreneurs make that 5th contact. That means like 92% of us are stopping short of where all the magic starts to happen. And my commitment is to help all of you to be one of those 8%. But it takes, like you said, the know-how. It takes the skills and knowing what to do and what to say. So what I find, in answer to your question, like why are people networking? They seem to have this addiction that they need to go to all these networking events. Like they need to show up at these networking events. But there's no, I know, but there's no strategy in place of what to do with these people that you meet. And so they're
Okay.
just going from event to event.
I'm laughing because you said they seem to be addicted to going to event to event. And my first course I ever taught was Confessions of a Networking Junkie.
Ah, that's why we are so aligned, right? We connected because we have so
Well,
much
I
in
had,
common.
I got feedback from a friend once that said, Jackie, I see you at all of these networking events. You're always, supporting other people and helping people make connections. And I have no idea what you do.
Wow.
It was
Interesting.
useful feedback. I actually
Yeah.
got accused of owning a business for the sole purpose to give me a reason to network. Yeah. And so there's a lot that can be, mental and emotionally challenging about following up. So getting to a networking event is the first piece, but actually having an agenda when you're there, an agenda in a good way, having a plan,
A plan.
having
Yes.
a concept of who's the right person for you to meet. Because you sent me that picture, which I thought was really hysterical, that stack of business cards. Yeah, with the lady going, what are you going to, and I've got a shoebox or two, and some of them I have moved from state to state. Yeah, and it's
Oh,
like, why am I keeping these if I'm not going to follow up with them?
you hit on something that I'd love to comment on, like when you said about they're going to these events, like who are they looking for? What I find is that most people are not prepared before they network and they just kind of wing it and show up. And it's a big part of what I teach my clients is to be prepared at every step of the process, especially before you're networking. So number one, why are you going, right? And most people, just a hint, most people go looking to sell and get clients, and that doesn't work very well, right? But also, right? Because it's that aggressive salesy behavior that shows, that energy that shows up. Number two is, being clear on who your ideal client is. Most people don't really articulate it well. And when you're networking with people, you want to be able to share if they ask, who's a good referral for you? Who are you looking for? Who do you work with? To be really clear. So I help my clients get really clear on who their ideal client is. And the other thing is most people don't take the time to figure out like what makes them unique. Why should somebody choose you versus all the other thousands of people that do what you do?
And those who think they have figured it out often have it in book form that they dump on someone at a networking event,
Right,
as
right, right,
opposed
right,
as opposed to feeding them a snack. Let's just
right.
give you the whole buffet.
And you just reminded me of the next like major thing, which is people are not prepared with what they're going to say when people ask what they do. So the hose comes out, right? And they hose people down. And like, we do not want to be that person, right? But people don't know what to say. And like, they either freeze up when they hear the question, or they go, okay, now is my time to tell them everything that I do. And 5 minutes later, this happened to me in January. I was at an event. I asked this guy, it was a 3-day event, really sophisticated high-end coaches. Asked this guy, what does he do? 5 minutes later, I was still there and I wanted to walk away. He finally asked me like a throwaway question. So what do you do? And by that time I was gone. Like I had no interest. It was such a turnoff. But people are doing this all the time. When I used to network back in the old days in person, I would see this happen all the time, that people would just go on and on and on and on and on. And it's just the first step. It's just the first, you're just meeting them. The relationship's just getting started. The follow-up is how that connection is nurtured step by step. And that's how you get to know each other more, by following up later.
So I once had an agenda, and and I know that that's a word that it's, again, we could assign different meanings to different words, and understanding the language of the person you're speaking with. So when you said agenda earlier, you were meaning it in a way that is constricting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So I'll see if I could switch my language to plan. So I
Or
once had a
intention.
plan.
or intention.
Yeah. Well, I had a plan because there's a difference. A plan is how I'm going to do something. My intention is what I want the outcome to be. So my intention is always build my business, otherwise stay home. My plan was something a lot simpler once I realized that I needed a plan. So what do you recommend for someone to have as a plan when they show up at a networking event?
Great question. So a few things. The way I teach is that the plan is to, like we were saying, show up in service, find people who you can partner up with, find those JV partners or power partners, depending on where what level you're at in your business. Find those people who have a similar ideal client as you do. So they're talking to people all day long who are your ideal clients. You're not in competition with them, and you can create a relationship where you're supporting each other. Like you and I, we're interviewing each other, right? We're introducing each other to our communities, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
what we do, what you offer is valuable to my community and vice versa, right? So you'll actually end up getting more clients if you, in the long run, if you go to a networking event looking to find those people to partner up with. And then, like my clients have said, they're so much more relaxed now, because before they felt pressure to go and find clients. So now they're just going, they go, I can help people. I can show up in service. I love to help people, right? So they're going with that intention. And just imagine, Jackie, so imagine last time you were at a networking event and someone hosed you down and you were like your wall goes up and you back off, right? You get really defensive. And please, all of you who are listening, please put in the chat, has this ever happened to you that you were at a networking event and someone's, stuffs their card in your face and then hoses you down? I just love to know if that's happened to you. So imagine, I know, it
And
just
I'm like,
happens.
and the crowd goes wild. Yeah. Because, yeah, it's a very consistent thing. Yeah.
So imagine if you're showing up in service to someone and you're not hosing them down with everything that you do, and you're really genuinely trying to help them, and you're asking questions and you're getting curious and you're listening, because listening and being present is like the biggest gift you can give someone, especially when you're in an event where all this stuff's going on. Like when you're making eye contact and you're there with them, it will go so far in building the relationship. So if you show up that way, Jackie, the wall comes down, the heart opens, and they're thinking, wow, this person's not trying to sell me. Imagine that. Like, what a beautiful person this is. I want to see what I can do to help them in return. And that's how it goes. And it happens all the time. And it happened all the time for me when I networked, and my clients too, because they're the different person. They're the person that's not trying to sell. They're the person that's showing up, wanting to help and serve. And it makes a huge difference in building that trust.
So what is the outcome that they would be looking for? They're not looking to get a client. They're looking to create some relationships. What do they need to be prepared to do, Debbie?
To make an appointment to get to know that person on a deeper level, because at the networking event, the whole point at a networking event, and it's a little different now online, but when you're in a in-person live event, you want to spend as much time with people to build the relationship, to get some connection, and to see if this is a person you want to continue a relationship with or not. But you don't want to be with them for too long, because then you're not going to be able to meet enough people. So there's a fine balance, right?
And neither
Between
will they. They won't be able to meet.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And so again, spend as much time as you can to build the relationship, get curious, ask questions. And the whole point, the whole plan, as you said, is to set a time for a coffee date with them later. If you live near each other, like once we get through what we're going through right now, you can meet in person, but right now it's going to be online,
Virtual
right?
coffee.
Virtual coffee dates. I do them all the time. So that is the plan, to just get to know them and then make the appointment to get together with them later, so you can deepen the relationship and see if you are a good fit to partner up with them. And it has to be mutually beneficial.
Oh, absolutely. Cool. All right. So that's the first follow-up, is the appointment that you make at the event. So the first follow-up is not an email. The first follow-up is a conversation.
If you were smart enough and savvy enough to make the appointment there, right? The best thing, like when I leave events, even online, I have most of my appointments made, so I don't have to go back and forth playing phone tag or email tag or whatever. It's done. So I'm all about the follow-up, but I'm all about minimizing the steps and making it as efficient as possible.
Okay, so do you prefer calendar links or just pull out your calendar and let's get it done?
Right. So great question. So if you're just one-on-one networking with someone, I would just say, just say, pull out your calendar, do it the old-fashioned way, and then send them a Google reminder or add them manually to your calendar if you have one. And if you don't, I highly recommend you get one, an online calendar. So you can do it either way, but I like it when I'm there with them in person and there's the time to do it,
Mhm.
book it right then and there, and then send them the reminder however you're going to do that.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's step one. Then what?
I mean, what, once you get on the call with them for the virtual coffee?
Yeah, for the virtual coffee, because you said it takes 5 touches. So this is not the fifth touch. We wouldn't be expecting on this system, we wouldn't be expecting them to become clients.
Right.
What
So,
would we be expecting?
all right. So these calls are not to try to get the person to become your client. It's not to sell. And my clients tell me this all the time. They have these coffee dates and people are just trying to sell them and trying to get them to become their client. That is not my philosophy. My philosophy is you're there to learn about each other's businesses, to see if and how you can support each other. And if
Mhm.
that person, and then everyone's guard is down because they're not feeling like they're being sold, their heart's open. And if what you are sharing about what you do resonates with them, they will self-select and lean in and say, hey, I want to know more about what you do because I need it, right? It's a very different conversation. And most people are not doing coffee dates like this.
Well,
And
you
people are
hit
getting
upon
turned
something.
off.
Most people are not doing coffee dates like this. Most people are doing exactly that. They're coming to that first coffee date expecting to do sales conversation.
Right.
So here's the question. If I'm setting up, I'm at a networking event and I'm setting up an appointment with someone for a coffee date, what can I say to them while we're setting up the appointment so that they get the fact that I'm not inviting them to invite me into their business or their tribe or anything?
Right. I love your questions are amazing. And we didn't plan this in advance. So this is so cool. So I have this in a template, like I have this in the coffee date template. And you can also say this at the networking event when you are making the appointment. If you say it at the networking event, they might forget. So my recommendation is what I'm going to share, you want to say at the beginning of the call because it will re-presence it. So you can tell them this then and then re-presence it when you meet with them. And that is that my intention is for us to get to know each other, to see if and how we can support each other, and not to try to get each other to become each other's clients. Are you cool with that? Like, are you game? Sounds good, like whatever you want to say, and set the stage. This is a game changer because I have a new client who's been doing coffee dates and she is getting sold to constantly and she's so disillusioned and she's so upset. And so I gave her this language. She just started working with me and it's changing everything for her because now it's not going to happen anymore. Right? That one sentence, because again, I'm very big on setting intention. So you want to set the intention and share it and get agreement. And then if the person forgets and tries, and you feel like they're trying to, they're getting a little salesy, you just interrupt them kindly and gently and remind them that this is not to try to sell to each other.
Yeah, and sometimes it's very difficult to tell. Are they trying to sell me, or are they just trying to inform me about what it is they do? Not everyone gets that the easiest way to inform someone about what you do is with a story about someone else.
Right. I'm very big on sharing stories. And that's part of preparation, Jackie, excuse me, is being prepared to share a very short, powerful client story, right? That hopefully, ideally relates to what they're dealing with or doesn't need to at all. Because if you're meeting with a potential JV partner, a power partner, you want to give them like proof, evidence of the work, the results that your clients get working with you. So sharing stories is very powerful.
It really is. And I'm kind of now taking myself outside of what normal networking looks like. because I go networking for the intention of finding interesting people to interview on my shows and on my summits. Yeah, I go networking for looking for connections for people who are either concerned about the rise in teen suicide rates, or they're already involved in that mission to make suicide among our teenagers a thing of the past. So these are the two radars that I go with. And the funniest thing has happened, Debbie. The more I focus on those two things, which are both acts of service, the more people want to know about my courses. You know, it's like, wait a minute, I'm not even talking about my business. But it shows up that way with an act of service. It's really a vital piece that is so missing in so many trainings.
Yeah, for sure.
All right.
For sure.
So what do you recommend as the next step? You know, you've had a conversation. Yes, you're gonna, you know, maybe someday do something with each other. Now what?
So you're saying that we're on the call, we're doing our coffee date, right? Okay, so if there's a really good connection and what they offer really benefits your community, and if you're not at the JV level, if you have clients that this person's product or service can benefit, then you want to keep the connection going and keep in touch. Because what happens is most people go from coffee date to coffee date and there's no follow-up afterwards. So it becomes a waste of time, just like the networking does, right? So you have to have a plan, a follow-up plan to stay in touch with these people, to keep checking in, because the relationship takes time to develop. And the more times you meet with people, the more times you have connection with them, the more you're going to find out about what they do, the more ideas you're going to come up with how to support them and for how they're going to support you. So like every time I do a follow-up call with a potential JV partner, it's just the light bulbs are going on. I'm like, wow, like I didn't know this about you. I didn't know this. And this is what I can do. And I come up with all these ideas and I get all excited. And then we just keep supporting each other more and more. So it's a process and it's not going to happen. Like people don't get married on the first date. Like after the first date, it just doesn't happen. It takes time to develop that trust. And, you know, we always hear people do business with folks they know, like, and trust.
You know, and it depends. I've actually found the exception to that. When someone has a problem that needs to be solved, they don't have to like you. If they trust that you've got the solution, they will buy from you anyway. The challenge if you're a coach, though, is that you can end up with clients that you don't like. So, yeah,
we don't want that to happen.
Yeah, that's why sales became such a challenge, because sales became such a transaction about a tangible product. And now we're in the selling of services where the engagement continues. I mean, it's not a, here's your car, drive off. You know, it's a, here's what we're going to interact with on a regular basis, potentially for years. And I've seen coaches burn out because it didn't dawn on them that getting to know and like and trust their client was just as important as the other side of the coin.
Exactly. And this relates to what we were talking about earlier with being clear on who your ideal client is. Because if you start working with someone that's not your ideal client, it will be a nightmare for you and it will be a nightmare for them. So we need to be very selective and not be, what's the word, you know, come across so needy and desperate and come from that scarcity that anyone who wants to work with me, I'm going to work with, right? Because it creates a heartache later.
And it's not even always from scarcity. I have seen it happen with someone who was so sure they could help everyone, they felt guilty if they didn't work with everyone.
Wow.
You know, and so it's like, it can come from that place. I call it the E syndrome, where you're trying to be everything to everybody. You know, and it can come from that place as well, where you'll say yes to someone, and I'm guilty of it. The good news is that people who come in because I said, yes, come on in, it's going to be fun. And then if it isn't, it's okay. They naturally fall away. The hardest part to me was learning not to attach to them. What you were talking about earlier, don't get attached to the outcome. I had a mentor who pretty much got in my face because I had someone who was self-selecting out of my program. And one of the things she said was, she said, I felt like you convinced me to come into the program. So that let me know that from her perspective, it was a hard sell, harder than I had really had planned on or intended.
Right.
But when I shared this with my mentor, their response was, if it was said to me, Jackie, I would have said, of course I convinced you because I know I can help you. And I went, oh my God. You know, and they're not my mentor anymore. Because I'm like, hold it. What does that do to a community?
This is not about convincing.
Yeah,
Ever.
I mean, yeah. So that's, I have a mentor now whose mantra is, it's not my job. I'm not in the business of convincing people.
Great, love that.
And I'm like, yes, good. That's one I could follow.
You found the right mentor, Jackie.
Oh my goodness. But yeah, I had that experience, and we are not talking a $500 mentor. Yeah,
No,
I was in a multiple 5-figure program, and it was like, oh yeah, let's get a little more discernment. Yeah. Wow. So the idea is to not worry about convincing people. I got that one. All right. So the relationships develop, and when there's this what I'm like, okay, this is the cure for what I think might be maybe it's just me, but it might be a common thing. I've got too many people to follow up with. I don't have enough bandwidth. So how does someone handle that kind of energy if that's what they're feeling? I mean, my first response now for myself would be, Jackie, just stop networking for a few days. You'll be fine. Yeah. But it can feel very overwhelming if you're networking in the right place where your ideal partners are hanging out, and maybe even some of your ideal clients. But as you said, at this point, networking is about building partnerships. So if you're networking where your ideal partners are hanging out, you could walk away with a lot of people to follow up with.
This is true. So I always talk about it, or go on, sorry.
No. You got it. Go ahead.
So my philosophy is, it's like eating an elephant one bite at a time, right? So, because people get so overwhelmed, I've got all these people to call. What do I do? How do I, blah, blah, blah. Well, the first step is you need to have a system in place to keep track of everybody. And it's a CRM, a customer relationship management system. Lots of people don't have them. And it is like the first step. And the CRM is where you're going to put the information of all the people you met, put the notes in there, and then call them and then set reminders to keep in touch with them, right? So that will help people to be more efficient and more effective. And there's so many CRMs out there, and people are always asking, which one should I use? I have vetted a whole bunch of them, and I have them on my website, powerupyourfollowup.com/resources. It's not one size fits all. So that's the first step, is get the system, and then just follow with one person at a time. Prioritize them in terms of the people who you had the best connection with, right? The best, just felt energetically like the best fit. And just keep setting the reminder to keep in touch with them until you reach them, until you get a yes or a no for whatever it is that you're calling them about. So that's really the first step. And then, like you said, I was finding that people were going from networking event to event, and they weren't leaving time or setting aside the time or scheduling the time in their calendar to do the follow-up. And then it becomes a waste of time that they're networking. So I always tell them, stop networking until you have no one left to follow up with, right? If you're done following up with everybody, then start networking again, right? Because why keep building up all these people that you need to get in touch with, and then you get all frustrated and overwhelmed, and then you get stuck because there's so much to do, and then you don't do it at all. So
and not doing it at all is the real challenge. So I went ahead and popped into the chat the link so that they can get the specific resource that's really going to help with the follow-up conversations. And that's that ebook. And I cannot tell you how grateful I am for you to provide that for everyone on this call and the people who are watching the recording. So if you're watching it as a recording or listening to it as a podcast, check the show notes. That's where you'll find the link. And if you're live, it is a hyperlink in the chat box. So feel free to go ahead and grab that. The scripts are absolutely amazing because I got my copy. When I got this link from you, I'm like, I got my copy. Yeah. So we were working our way through this idea of.
Jackie, do you want me to tell them what this is, these scripts that we're offering?
Well, we will, absolutely.
All right, because I'd love to share why you want this. So people share with me all the time about scenarios where they just don't know what to say when they're following up. So I chose 3 scenarios that we all deal with all the time to help you so that you do pick up the phone and you call people. And one of them is if you found a card from somebody you met a really long time ago and you're about to throw it out, which I say never throw out a card. That's like putting a dagger in my heart. Don't do that. Here's what you can say so that it's not uncomfortable, right? And then let's say you had a conversation with a potential client. They were interested in learning more about what you do, but they were not a yes on that call. And then they go MIA. What do you say? Like that happens to all of us, right? Like it's just a very common thing. And then the other one is you've met somebody at a networking event who you think you could partner up with. You know, it's a script for calling them if you weren't able to make an appointment there. What do you say when you call them? So it's really, really powerful. And should I talk about the networking thing or should we wait till later for that?
Let's wait till later because I want to stick with this thing about these 3 scripts because they are very, very powerful. They're very key scenarios.
Yes.
And so the key scenario, one is I met them a long time ago. One is I met them, we connected, and now they're you said MIA, so missing in action. And I always love to double check my acronyms because I discovered the other day that I was using an acronym and they were using an acronym and we had 2 very different meanings. So it was like, oh, no. So I'm a military brat, MIA, I understand, just like AWOL, I understand. But if I'm talking to my guy, he doesn't understand either one. So, yeah, so missing in action. You know, you're doing the calls, you're doing the emails, and you're getting no response. And the reality is, don't assume that you know what's going on in someone else's life.
Right.
Keep showing up with your heart first in service and you're going to make up a story anyway, because we are story creating machines up here. Make up the story that is the kindest about them.
Exactly.
Yeah. Staying in this place of kindness is really, really critical from my perspective. And so Debbie, creating these scripts is a huge act of kindness and service. You know, it's just like when you help someone with their I am, you know, or who I serve, or however, you know, people start the answer to that. I don't know why people go networking. They're afraid of the question, what do you do?
Right.
If you're networking, you could sort of anticipate that question, maybe. Maybe.
Just saying.
So, okay, I got an idea. We're going to meet at a networking event. You're going to ask me what I do. I'm going to tell you the way that before I shifted into mission work, how I would introduce myself. And then you can let me know what changed. How's that?
Okay, sounds good.
Oh, and if somebody on the call wants to volunteer for that, there's a way to raise your hand. By the way, Zoom training, there's a way to raise your hand. If you click on the participants button, it'll pop up on the right side of your screen. You can just raise your hand and then we can unmute you if you want to play this game.
That'd be great.
How to do a follow-up, how to do a networking message. And then we'll get into the whole networking conversation. All right, you ready?
Ready.
Okay, so we've met, ask me.
So hi, Jackie. So nice to meet you. Just curious, you know, who do you serve and how do you help people? Like, you know, what do you do?
Well, I've been working with entrepreneurs for a really long time, and most of them struggle with how to put words around what they're doing. And what I found is that they struggle because they're so worried about what other people think of them that they can't get their thoughts together because of the worry. And I help take that worry away.
Awesome. Well done.
So, what do you think?
I think it's good. And it was interesting because I was doing some coaching on this yesterday for a friend's program. And all I would suggest is to add more about the pain, that how they were feeling because they weren't clear. Say again your first part, that you work with entrepreneurs who what?
Who struggle to, you know, to put their messaging together, to be able to say what they want to say.
Okay,
And
perfect.
so I would go into, so when it comes to a networking event like this, they feel really anxious and worried.
Right,
Oh,
right.
got
So
it.
yeah, just to get more specific about how they're feeling and how it's impacting them, that they're struggling. So they're struggling with their message. They don't have a clear message. So how is it impacting their life? And then you support them or coach them or help them to get more clarity again, so they can, like, what's the ultimate result? Because what I'm finding when people share, Jackie, about what they do, a lot of times they focus on the process,
Mm-hmm.
the journey that they take people through. And most people don't care about that. What they care about is what's the ultimate result? Like, what's the benefit that I'm going to have working with you or taking your product, whatever it is, whether it's a product or service? What's the experience I'm going to have with you? How am I going to feel when this is over, right? So that's what I really focus on with people, is to create that. And most people are not doing that.
Well, I understand that. It is not so easy. So let's go with, you know, Darlene, if you want to play, just raise your hand, let us know, put it in the chat, because you are a wellness coach, and that is something that is so very much needed right now as we're all dealing with really high stress situations.
Yes.
Yeah. So one of the other things though, because I want to be mindful, Debbie, I know that I caught you in the middle of your busy day, and I so appreciate you making this time. You and I, when we first connected, the journey was like, oh my God, I need you, because I'm not teaching the same things that I used to teach, you know, and I wanted someone to be able to refer to. And you not only showed up with the skills and all of the scripts and all of these wonderful tools, but also with your own networking group. And it's not just an ordinary networking group. So why don't you say a little bit about that, and I will hunt up a link for an amazing gift, because I mean, you're just really generous. I appreciate it.
And I think I've been in touch with Christy. I just wanted to see if we can create another link. So we'll have to figure this out. We might have to get the link to them later, because what I mentioned earlier is not going to work. But I'll just share with you guys what it is. Is that okay? I'll just share what it is, and then we can get them an email later, or link,
Yeah,
an
absolutely.
email. All right,
We
cool.
will make sure that you all get it, and it'll get added to the show notes. So no worries. All right. So talk about what it is. All right.
So this is something that Jackie and I came up with last minute because I wanted to be super, super generous. In addition to the 3 scripts, so I host these networking events twice a month online, of course, and it's attracting entrepreneurs from all over the world. And the people who are coming are these heart-centered folks. They're amazing, and they're connecting with each other. They're collaborating. Some are becoming each other's clients. We even have a vendor expo before and after, where people can sign up to get a vendor booth and just have a bunch of people there with them, and they get to share what they do. So, and they're networking the whole time. The whole event is networking one-on-one and in groups. And then on the 3rd Wednesday of the month, we have a speaker, and then the rest of the time is networking. So people are telling me they're doing so much more networking at my event than anywhere else, because sometimes there's just a speaker and nobody gets to network with each other. So what I'm offering is, in addition to the 3 scripts to power up your sales, you can attend 6 of my networking events as my guest. So 6 events
Wow.
for free. So we just decided this last minute. So we'll have to get you a link to do that. It's not what we talked about earlier will not work.
All right, so
So
there we go. So the link will be coming to an inbox near you. We'll make sure that everyone has it if you're on the call live. And if you are watching this as a recording, don't worry, it'll be in the show notes. We'll have it figured out. Cool. All right, so let's wrap it up and put a nice bow on. Now that they've got the scripts to follow up, they can relax and they can show up for 6 network. That's 3 months worth of networking with people who know the rules of the game according to Debbie. So this is why I said, let's go into the networking world according to Debbie, because you've got a tribe that absolutely gets this and they're all playing by the same rules. And I think that that's the most powerful part of what you put together, is that when we know the rules of the game, we automatically relax just a little bit more because we're not having to spend energy trying to figure it out.
exactly. And what happens, Jackie, when you like have this plan, you know what you're going to say, you show up more confident and you become more magnetic. It just happens. And people are attracted to you because like you become this magnet for them. So, so here you have the networking event to meet all these great people. And now you have the scripts to use in those 3 different scenarios if you need them. So it goes hand in hand.
Well, and I cannot imagine anyone who doesn't need them. Even a seasoned networker, somebody who has been really consistent with their follow-up, it's a good thing to check in and, as they say, sharpen your saw. And the value of that lesson, it's a little tiny short lesson of the 2 lumberjacks who were supposed to cut down wood, and they're in a race how many trees they can cut down, and one of them is just whacking away for the whole 4 hours, and the other was taking a 15-minute break out of every hour, and he cut down more wood. And the other lumberjack was like, how did that happen? You didn't even work almost half as hard as I did. And the guy, what were you doing on these breaks? He said, sharpening my saw. Yeah, great. Sharpening my axe. And we need to pause and we need to sharpen our skills, especially now that networking has moved online, because it's not that it's really changed, but we think it has. And because we think it has, we want to give ourselves a chance to refresh our skills, go back to the really solid foundation. And Debbie, that's what you've done. You've created a really solid foundation for everyone.
Well, thank you. And the thing is, there are some things that transfer from in-person networking to online, but then there's all these new rules of the game. There's things to do online that we might not know about. And that's what I teach people in my program, because right now, networking, we're all isolated. Networking is the only way we're going to be meeting people, or the best way. I mean, you can go on social media and reach out to people there, but in terms of meeting with people, networking is it. And there's certain things that you can do to get more visibility and to get noticed, and just to show up in a way that attracts people to you. And that's what I teach.
Well, I know that you've got a course coming up and it's a few weeks out. So maybe we'll have you back in a couple of weeks right before the course, and we'll continue this conversation, because I think it's a conversation worth having.
That would be awesome. I would love to do that. This has been so fun, and I adore you, and I loved your questions, and we're just so in sync. Like our philosophies are just so, that the first time we met, it's like, oh my God, I love you, right? Because we found a kindred spirit. We found our person.
Yeah, and there's no wrong way to do this. There's only relax and notice what's working. And if it's not working, get with somebody who is working and see what they're doing that's different. So, I'm a firm believer in you can't do it wrong. So, Debbie, it's a fun time and we're just going to double up. There we go. So, thank you and you're welcome. So I love the chat and I love the comments on the videos. So if you're watching this on The World According to Jackie Simmons or listening to the podcast, please comment please make sure you grab the links and take advantage of this absolutely generous gift from Debbie. And until then, thank you for letting us come into the world according to Debbie.
Jackie, real quick, I would love to know what everyone's takeaway was, from our interview today. What was your aha insight? Do we have a second just to have people chat in? I would love that. So please put in the chat what your takeaway was from today. I always love to know what resonates with people the most. So let's just see.
As the chat is going on, we'll continue the conversation, because now you've actually taken us into another realm, and we're just going to keep going for just another couple of minutes. But here's the deal. When you're in a networking event, this can become a challenge where someone is trying to say goodbye and move on to the next conversation. And the other person says, but one more thing. And of course, we know each other, so this is not an issue at all for me, but I'm realizing this can happen in a networking event and have not good written all over it. What do you recommend as a strategy if you're the one that's trying to leave?
So this is more relevant when you're, and this is a great question, when you're networking in person and somebody's going on and you are done, you can just, either say their name or put your hand gently on their their like elbow or their arm, which will stop them, and just say, Jackie, it's been so lovely meeting you. I'm sure you want to meet other people.
All right, Debbie, bring us to the virtual world, because that's not working for me.
This isn't going to happen because you're in breakout rooms, and so at least the way I do the breakout rooms is when the 7 minutes is up, I bring everybody back so they can't really leave. Right, so they're with that person. That's why I said it doesn't really relate to online work.
Okay. So I got news for you. There's a leave button at the bottom of the screen. I don't have to wait for 7 minutes but I hear what you're saying. The expectation is that you've got this time that you're going to be together, because the rooms are managed. So
nobody has left. Nobody has left the rooms because they've loved the quality of people who are showing up. But I hear what you're saying.
What I'm saying is that because of the expectations, Debbie, it's an honor to your system that everyone knows what to expect.
Yeah.
And yes, we do have takeaways. And thank you for catching the fact that not getting attached to the outcome is really a critical piece.
Yeah.
And as you always model, Debbie, speaking from the heart.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for that feedback, Darlene. That's a great takeaway. That will be a game changer for you in your business. When people know that you really care about them and you have their best interests at heart, it's going to make a big difference. And I'll tell you something I didn't mention earlier is that when I follow up with people, they thank me for following up, because so few people are following up. And when I do, it gets their attention and it makes them really feel like I care about them.
And it makes you stand out. So if you want to know how to stand out in networking, all you have to do is follow up. Thank you, Debbie. And thank you for everyone listening and watching. And make sure you come back for another episode of The World According to Jackie. And we'll be back again with more from The World According to Debbie in a future episode.
Thanks so much, Jackie. So great to be here with you. Bye for now.